Okay, so I've been told I can start. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dalibor Kurek. I work for IBM here in Prague. I'm Czech, but I've been told that the official language of this track is English, so I will speak in English. So, and I should probably speak into this, right? Okay, so the title of the presentation is Linux on System Z. Consolidation makes sense. And that begs the obvious question, because we all know what Linux is, but what the hell is System Z? So IBM System Z also... Right, excellent. Okay, so also known as the Enterprise, at least the last two generations are. Previously known as Z Series, before that S390, and even before that all the way back to System 360. aka the mainframe, aka Big Iron, aka the big, bad, expensive machine. Well, we need a clear definition, obviously. So my favorite definition of the mainframe is that it's an obsolete device still used by thousands of obsolete companies, serving billions of obsolete customers and making huge obsolete profits for their obsolete shareholders. And this year's model runs twice as fast as last year's. So this year's obsolete parameters, just for your interest, are 5.5 gigahertz clock speed, which to my knowledge is the biggest one commercially available without, some special stuff like nitrous oxide cooling and things like that. 120 processor cores per one physical machine, that's the maximum. 3 terabytes of memory in something we call RAM, which is something like RAID 5 for memory. 3 gigabytes cache, and yes, that's gigabytes, in 4 levels, 1 through 4. And if you're interested in details and you can read the fine print, you can find out how that figure is arrived to. 384 gigabytes per second total maximum I/O throughput, not processor throughput, but I/O channel throughput. And again, yes, that's gigabytes per second, not gigabits. 92.4 billion transistors if you count just the processor and cache chips, not the ASICs on the I/O cards and stuff like that. 32 internal virtual TCP/IP networks, which we call hypersockets, which again all leads to another obvious question: why should you care? The reason and the answer to that obviously is it depends. Either you're interested, or you may find it interesting that some of the biggest companies in the world actually use this platform. And on the top you have a figure that I find the most interesting, mainly because it's actually true, and that's 96 out of the top 100 banks on this planet actually use this platform to run their business. What's even more interesting for this audience is that actually 66 out of the biggest IBM customers, out of the 100 biggest customers for System Z, actually run Linux on this platform. That's where we're getting to the topic of today's presentation. And I'm going to stop at one more number, and that's the blue one on the left, which I suspect if you read yourself, you may be thinking, wait a minute, that's not true. So we are saying that 60% of all data available online is stored on mainframe platforms, and to clarify and to make you understand why we say that, it's not counting porn. So we mean actual data, and in that case we should be probably close to the truth. Okay, so all of this I would like to illustrate with an example why these companies do this. So a real life question: if you have to provide printing services to 100 people, which one of these will be cheaper? A small desktop inkjet printer, or this big bad guy on the right? And of course, the answer is, it depends. It depends on what you look at. It depends on if you look at just the amount of money you have to dish out to buy that thing, in which case you could actually buy 100 small printers. So give each of those people his own printer, and it will still be cheaper than to buy the big one. So you get the lower cost of acquisition, what we call TCA. But if you actually want to print something, then very quickly you realize that this is not going to work out as well in the long run, because you will have a very high cost per page printed, because you probably know that you're basically getting the printer for free with the first set of inks. And if you have to buy the ink afterwards, it's very, very expensive. If those people actually were, not printing at all, that might be the lower cost alternative. But if they are actually doing something, then the solution on the right will very soon prove to be the less expensive one, because you will have much lower cost per page printed, you will have much lower maintenance cost, and you will have much simpler administration. You will probably be able to administer that printer with one person, which could be kind of hard to do with the 100 on the left. So I have another example, and I like this one because it involves vehicles, which is my favorite. So similarly, which of these is the fastest? And of course, you're expecting me to say it depends. I will rephrase that, and I will say fastest at what? Doing what? So, acceleration, I would personally put my money on the motorcycle, obviously. Moving something fairly small, but something you wouldn't want to haul on the motorcycle, you would be probably best out with the pickup truck. If you have something bigger, a larger load, where the pickup truck, of course you could use that, but you would have to take several trips, and in that case the bigger truck would definitely do it faster, because it will just get it there in one single trip. And of course, if the task is to move 300 people, and you may think here, a different kind of train, a mixed load, which in IT case would be mixed workload, then of course you would need some consolidated solution. And that's a concept we at IBM call fit for purpose. So basically pick the right platform for the job. And you can very easily see the parallel between these and the IT world. So you may have the fastest available Intel chip in your notebook, and it will run certain benchmarks so quickly that it would seem that you could really use it for some workloads. But as soon as you add up that workload, it proves that some loads are better off on a different platform. So by the way, that's the newest C Enterprise on the down left, and the blue one, that's the IBM PureFlex, if you've heard of it. Okay, so knowing this, you would think that companies that buy servers to run some workload would actually go through this trouble and think about what platform it would run best on. It turns out that in reality, they just ask two questions. They just ask, will the application that I need to run on this particular hardware platform? If yes, then it goes onto the short list, and then they will ask, how much does the hardware cost? And they pick the one that costs the least, which is not quite okay from the long-term view, because that's just the TCA, and remember the printer's example. So what are we missing here? It's clearly the non-functional requirements. So if you need the hardware to be reliable, be scalable, be secure, things like space, power, cooling, etc., you can read that yourself. I will just go on because the time is short. Okay, so that's as I already said, that's the idea of IBM's fit-for-purpose approach. So by all means, put on Intel what runs best on Intel on x86. That's of course fine. But there are some workloads that don't run the best on Intel. And those may be better off on a different platform, which may happen to be the mainframe. And IBM offers something that we call the ELS, the Enterprise Linux Server, which is a Linux-only mainframe, which is much less expensive than a mainframe that would be running the z/OS operating system or some other operating system from IBM. So that's the reason why I'm talking about that here. Okay, I will be very quick about this because I have less than 10 minutes left, so I'm not going to play quiz with you. I will just tell you the options and the answer, and I have to warn you that it's a trick question. So virtualization, that's a big concept lately. When do you think the concept was actually born, invented?
1960s.
Okay, so was it either 2001 when the first ESX server came out? Probably not. Was it 98 when VMware was founded? Or was it 1976 when IBM introduced logical partitions on the mainframe? And the answer is right there, it's D, 1964. So right when the first mainframe, the first System 360 was introduced, that's when IBM started the development of something then called CP40, which over the years evolved into something we call nowadays ZVM. So that's the software hypervisor for the mainframe. And I have a nice chart here which compares, you have the number of virtual machines on, and you can read the, you can read the hardware configs down at the bottom if you can read them. And you see that at some point, on the x86 platform, the scaling kind of breaks. You don't get, the response time goes up very fast, and you see you're hitting some kind of ceiling. And ZVM just keeps on going on actually half the number of processor cores. And the reason for that is that the Z box has a dedicated I/O subsystem. What that means is that you have some processors that you're used to from the distributed platforms, and you can compare the machines on that level. But underneath, you actually have some specialty processors, which you don't get on the distributed platform. But most importantly, on the mainframe, you get a several-fold number of I/O processors dedicated just to serving I/O. So the processor doesn't spend time processing I/O requests and really just runs code. And the I/O traffic is taken care of by different set of chips. Okay, so to recap, to host X number and fill in your own, 50, 100, 200, should you use the Enterprise Linux Server, which seems so nice, or virtualization on x86? And of course, the answer is it depends. But there are cases when the one on the left may be the better choice. Okay, I'm going to skip this because time is really short. And yeah, this is just to show that it can really be much less expensive to actually invest in a platform that has, more expensive hardware, but on the software side can save you a lot of money. If you look at that should be TCO, total cost of ownership, not TCA. So it can be less expensive in the long run. Okay, this is, I would say, a textbook example. Of course, there are not too many companies that have something like that. That's an example of 10,000 workloads and a comparison of what it would take to run that on x86 distributed and what it would take to run on Z. So the idea there is basically to put the heavy I/O workloads on Z where it runs best because it has this massive I/O throughput, and you would put the heavy workloads on power processors, which can be connected to the mainframe, and you would leave the light workloads on x86, but part of what we call an ensemble, which is basically part of the Z enterprise. And the savings, of course, can be dramatic, especially like the network. You have to wire up those 1,600 servers together, while basically on the mainframe you just connect a few boxes together, and that's where you get over 90% savings. Okay, how much time do I have? 5 minutes? Great. Okay, so I have enough time to give you this specific example of a consolidation study which I did, so I feel entitled to present it here. And it's from this country. It's a local example. So it's basically a study of what the target hardware on the Z side would have to be to consolidate this many servers. The important thing to say at the beginning is that this was not the whole server farm of the customer. This was just a part which they picked. They actually had over 200 servers in total, but they picked these 48 and they gave us the data coming from those servers. So these 48 servers had 205 processor cores. These were some older, Sun servers. Most of them had AMD Upturn processors. Some were even some Intels. So it was a very heterogeneous environment. And we said, well, what would be the hardware on the Z side that could run the same workload as these servers are running? So something stuck here? Oh, sorry about this. Okay, just give me a few seconds to get back where I was. Okay. What is this?
It's not a stuck keyboard, some software problem.
Yeah. Well, don't ask me what operating system is running on this. Okay, so, okay, sticks. Okay, so first we need to know what I call who are they. So what are the servers that we are about to consolidate? Then we need some data on utilization. So what are they actually doing? How hard do they work? And you can use SAR or whatever to problem? No? Okay. To see, what is the utilization in time. Okay, again. All right. And then, very important thing, you need to know what is it these servers are doing. So it's not the same if you have a 8-core server running database and if you have the same server serving, web serving HTTP, because the workload characteristic is different. And for the database load, the mainframe will shine more than for the web workload. So that's why we take that into account. I'm going to be very careful here. Okay. And of course, that data enables us to construct, a chart of the utilization. That's business as usual. And then we get some summary numbers. So, for example, what is the total power input of those 48 servers? And in this case, it's almost 1 kilowatt per server, so that's a huge amount of power, which is also going to cost something. And I will just very, very quickly finish this. I wanted to show you this because this is very nice in terms of you see it's real data, because this was 1 calendar week. So you immediately see the 5 working days. You see when people come to work in the morning, you see when they go to lunch, you see the afternoon shift, and of course you see where the peak is. And if you look at the just one day to make it a little bit more readable. You can see the deep purple down there that's making up most of the load is basically the main database server, so that makes sense. Well, to make a long story short, we could consolidate that workload onto 12 engines, meaning processor cores, on the new mainframe. So 48 servers with 205 cores onto just 12 cores in a server that can have up to 120. We would need 256 gigabytes of memory, while the server can have up to 3 terabytes. So the consolidation ratio in that case is 48:1, counting boxes, but it could actually be all the way up to close to 500:1, because we could put 10 times as much on still this one server. And the ratio for just processor cores is about 17:1, but very important point, these were just production servers. So if we were to include test and development, we could get the ratio much, much higher still. Okay, I'm finished because I'm over time anyway. Questions? Okay, if there are no questions, I don't know if you know this one, but I thought I would share it with you. Just as a reward for being patient and listening to me for half an hour. Okay, thank you very much.